50 employees ran from the ruthless CEO. The rookie stood his ground, and everything changed. When the black Tesla Model S pulled into the BonzTech manufacturing parking lot for the third time that week, all the seasoned engineers already knew the pattern. First came the silence, that eerie quiet when the electric engine shut off. Then she stepped out in her Armani suit and ice blue eyes that could freeze molten steel. Then the interrogations started, the public humiliations, the impossible deadlines, and finally, yet another resignation letter would land on our desk. Another empty workstation. Another career destroyed. But Walter Preston, barely 28 years old, fresh out of community college with zero corporate experience, didn't know the legend of Mary Barnes. He didn't know she was the terror of every manufacturing floor from Detroit to Silicon Valley. He didn't know she had made engineers with PhDs break down in bathroom stalls. And when she arrived at his workstation that Tuesday night in November, demanding to know why he was the only incompetent left in this facility, Walter did something no one else had dared to do. He looked her dead in the eye and said, "Maybe I'm the only one who's not afraid of you." The November cold bit through the walls of BonzTech manufacturing as Walter Preston recalibrated the same diagnostic sensor for the fifth time. He had just turned 28. His associate's degree in industrial mechanics still smelled of fresh ink, and anxiety gnawed at his stomach like acid. The facility had belonged to the innovators, the pioneers, the brilliant minds who had built Detroit's resurrection from automotive ruins into AI-driven glory. But those pioneers were gone now, 50 of them in 3 years, leaving behind not just empty desks, but a culture of terror so thick you could taste it in the recycled air. Walter was brilliant with theory. He had been top of his class at Wayne County Community College. He could recite the specifications of hundreds of robotic assembly protocols from memory, troubleshoot complex AI decision trees with his eyes closed, and explain machine learning optimization with engineering precision. But corporate survival was a completely different story. In 3 weeks working at BonzTech, he had witnessed 4 people quit. Not because they did bad work, their technique was impeccable. The problem was Mary Barnes, the CEO, the Ice Queen, the woman whose very presence could make a room 10 degrees colder. She didn't want excuses. She didn't want explanations. She wanted perfection, and anything less was a personal insult worthy of public execution. Walter had watched as one by one, brilliant minds crumbled under her glacial stare. Dr. Richardson with his MIT doctorate, gone after 2 weeks. Sarah Chen with 15 years at Tesla, lasted a month. Marcus Webb, a veteran of Ford's robotics division, made it 6 days before his hand started shaking so badly he couldn't hold a wrench. All with the same haunted look when they packed their toolboxes, the same whispered warnings, "Get out while you can. She'll destroy you. She destroys everyone." That evening, Walter had counted the pills in his mother's medication bottle 3 times, as if they might magically multiply. 12 days of cancer medication left. The prescription cost $4,200 to refill, money he didn't have without this job. His mother, Patricia, a widow since Walter was 19, had been fighting stage 3 breast cancer for 8 months. Her insurance covered some of it, but the experimental treatment keeping her alive cost $6,000 a month out of pocket. Between his BonzTech salary of $52,000 a year and the medical bills, they were drowning. Walter was seriously considering what everyone told him to do: keep his head down, avoid Mary Barnes at all costs, do exactly what he was told, and pray she forgot he existed. Courage didn't pay medical bills. Pride didn't keep his mother alive. But that night, when Mary Barnes stepped onto the production floor at 11:47 p.m., her heels clicking like a countdown to execution, her blonde hair pulled back so tight it looked painful, her blue eyes scanning the facility like a predator hunting prey, Walter realized something that would change everything. He had nothing left to lose. The AI assembly line was hemorrhaging $200,000 an hour in cascading failures. Every senior engineer had either quit or refused the assignment. The Series C funding presentation was in 72 hours. And Mary Barnes was staring directly at him, the rookie, the community college graduate, the guy in the burgundy work shirt and vintage flat cap who looked like he'd walked off a 1940s factory floor into a 2019 tech facility. "You," she said, her voice sharp enough to cut titanium. You're the emergency assignment. Walter's hands didn't shake. His voice didn't crack. He met her eyes, those cold, calculating, ruthless eyes that had broken 50 people before him, and heard himself say the words that sealed his fate. What's the problem? Mary Barnes smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a chess player who just identified which pawn to sacrifice. Everything, she said. Fix it in 48 hours, or you're fired. And with that, she turned and walked away, leaving Walter alone on the production floor with a mystery no one else could solve, a deadline that would define his future, and the growing realization that he just stepped into a war he didn't understand. But what Mary Barnes didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Walter Preston had spent his entire life being underestimated. And he was done playing by their rules. The break room smelled of burnt coffee and resignation. Walter stood at the vending machine, pretending to choose between stale pretzels he couldn't afford while his new colleagues whispered behind him like he wasn't there. 3 days, someone muttered. I give him 3 days before he quits. 2, another voice countered. The Barnes breakdown always happens faster with the young ones. Marcus Webb, one of the few remaining senior engineers, at least had the decency to look guilty. Kid's got guts, I'll give him that. But guts don't debug proprietary AI code at $200,000 an hour. Walter turned, pretzels forgotten. What exactly am I walking into? The room went silent. Marcus sighed, pulling up a holographic display on his tablet. Come here. Let me show you what 50 people couldn't fix. The Barnes Tech assembly line wasn't just machines, it was a symphony of artificial intelligence. Robotic arms that learned from each movement, predictive algorithms that optimized every millisecond, neural networks that made real-time decisions faster than any human could comprehend. It was Detroit's promise, the automotive capital reborn as the AI manufacturing mecca. Except it was dying. See this. Marcus pointed to cascading red errors flooding the screen. The system's decision-making core is failing. It's like the AI is forgetting how to think. One arm stops mid-assembly. Another repeats the same motion 47 times. The quality control sensors report phantom defects that don't exist. Phantom defects, Walter repeated, his mind already racing through possibilities. That's not mechanical failure. That's cognitive breakdown. Marcus's eyebrows rose slightly. You actually understand this stuff? I understand it in theory, Walter admitted. I've just never seen it fail this catastrophically in practice. Well, you've got 47 hours and 13 minutes to learn. Marcus closed the display, his expression somber. Welcome to the graveyard shift, kid. Where careers come to die. Mary Barnes didn't walk, she calculated. Each step across the production floor was measured, deliberate, like a surgeon approaching an operating table. The blue LED lights caught her blonde hair, giving her an almost ethereal quality that made the coldness in her eyes even more unsettling. Walter was elbow deep in the AI assembly line's diagnostic port when he felt the temperature drop. Not literally, but every engineer in the facility seemed to hold their breath simultaneously. He turned to find her standing 3 feet away, studying him like he was a specimen under glass. Walter Preston. She didn't ask. She stated. Her voice was precise, clinical, devoid of warmth. Community college. No corporate experience. Hired 3 weeks ago at $52,000 annually, which means you're desperate. She tilted her head slightly. Mother's medical bills, I assume. The invasion of privacy should have angered him. Instead, Walter felt something else, recognition. She'd done her homework. She knew exactly where to apply pressure. The malfunction, he said, refusing to take the bait. Marcus showed me the error patterns. The eye's cognitive core is. I'm aware of the technical specifications, Mary interrupted, her blue eyes narrowing. What I'm not aware of is why I should trust a rookie with zero practical experience to solve a problem that defeated engineers with decades of expertise. Because they were afraid of you, Walter said quietly. And fear makes people stupid. The silence that followed felt dangerous. Mary's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes, surprise, maybe, or calculation. 48 hours, she said finally. You have access to everything except the proprietary AI core code. If you need that, you ask me directly. No one else. She leaned closer, and Walter caught the faint scent of expensive perfume mixed with something sharper. Fail, and you're gone. Succeed, and we'll discuss your future. Do you understand the parameters? I understand you need me more than I need you, Walter replied. Mary Barnes smiled. It was terrifying. We'll see. Hour 6. Walter's eyes burned from staring at cascading code, but the pattern was finally emerging. The robotic arms weren't malfunctioning randomly, they were responding to corrupted decision trees buried 3 layers deep in the neural network. He traced the error pathway through the system architecture, expecting to find a recent bug, a patch gone wrong, maybe faulty sensor calibration. What he found instead made his hands stop moving across the holographic interface. Encrypted files. Dozens of them. Embedded in the eye's core decision-making algorithm like tumors in healthy tissue. Walter pulled up the metadata, his pulse quickening. The timestamps read July 2014. 5 years before most of BarnesTech's current employees had even been hired. 5 years before the company had gone public. These files had been here since the system's inception, dormant, waiting. He tried to open one. Access denied. Authorization required. AI systems learned from data. They built knowledge through pattern recognition, optimizing decisions based on training sets and real-world feedback. But they could also be poisoned. Feed an AI corrupted data hidden in its training architecture, and you could make it fail in very specific, very deliberate ways. It was called data poisoning, and it was nearly impossible to detect unless you knew exactly where to look. Walter sat back, his mind racing. This wasn't a malfunction. This was sabotage. Someone had planted these encrypted files years ago, programming the system to eventually self-destruct. But who? And why now? His fingers hovered over the communication panel. He should tell Mary immediately. This was beyond his clearance level, beyond his expertise. This was corporate espionage, possibly criminal. But something stopped him. Mary had said he could access everything except the proprietary AI core code. These files were buried in that exact location. Which meant either she didn't know they existed, or she knew exactly what they were. Walter's hands were shaking now, but not from fear. From the realization that he just found something he was never supposed to see. The production floor was a cathedral of shadows at 3 a.m., the only light coming from Walter's workstation and the blue glow of dormant machines. He heard her heels before he saw her, that distinctive click echoing across the empty factory floor like a countdown. Mary appeared out of the darkness, still in her suit, not a hair out of place despite the hour. Progress report. Walter turned from his screen, exhaustion and adrenaline making him reckless. I found something you need to see. He pulled up the encrypted files, watching her face in the holographic display's glow. For exactly 1 second, one beautiful, revealing second, her carefully constructed mask cracked. Her eyes widened. Her breath caught. Pure, undiluted fear. Then it was gone, replaced by something far more dangerous. You accessed restricted core code. Her voice was ice over steel. That's a termination offense. You gave me access to everything, Walter countered. These files are corrupting the entire decision-making algorithm. They've been here for 5 years, Mary. Since 2014. Before. Before what? She stepped closer, her blue eyes blazing. Before you were hired? Before you even graduated? You think 3 weeks gives you the right to dig through proprietary architecture like some amateur detective? I think someone sabotaged this system from the inside, Walter said, standing his ground. And I think you know more about it than you're saying. The silence stretched between them like a wire pulled too tight. Mary's jaw clenched, her hands curling into fists at her sides. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried more threat than any scream. Your job is to fix the problem, not investigate it. You have 45 hours remaining. Touch those files again, ask one more question about their origin, and you're finished. Not just here, everywhere. I will personally ensure you never work in this industry again. She leaned in, her face inches from his. Do we understand each other? Walter's heart hammered, but he didn't look away. Perfectly. Good. She turned to leave, then paused. And Walter? Delete your findings. All of them. Dawn painted Mary's office in shades of gray. Walter stood in her doorway, uninvited, his burgundy work shirt wrinkled from 22 hours straight on the factory floor. She looked up from her laptop, exhaustion etched in lines he hadn't noticed before. I didn't delete the files, he said. And I'm not leaving until you tell me the truth. Security is one call away. Then make it. Walter stepped inside, closing the door behind him. But that doesn't solve your problem. In 38 hours, this system crashes in front of your investors, and you lose everything. I can't fix what I don't understand. Mary's hands trembled slightly as she closed her laptop. For a long moment, she just stared at him, and Walter saw something he'd never expected to see in the Ice Queen's eyes: defeat. His name was David Chen, she said finally, her voice hollow. My co-founder. We built Barnes Tech from nothing in 2012. Equal partners. Equal vision. She laughed bitterly. Or so I thought. Walter remained silent, sensing the dam about to break. In 2014, he went to the board behind my back. Told them I was too aggressive, too difficult to work with. He had investors lined up to force me out of my own company. Her fingers traced the edge of her desk. So I created a kill switch. A backdoor buried so deep in the AI core that only I could access it. Insurance, I told myself. Protection against betrayal. You sabotaged your own system, Walter breathed. I created a failsafe, Mary corrected sharply. Then, quieter, I won the board fight. David left. I thought I deleted the code, but... She met his eyes, and Walter finally understood the fear he'd seen at 3 a.m. I lost control of it. The encryption changed. Someone else has access now, and they're using it to destroy everything I built. You've been trying to fix this alone, Walter realized. That's why 50 people quit. You couldn't let anyone close enough to find the truth. Mary Barnes, the ruthless CEO, looked away. Now you know. Walter's screen erupted in red warnings at 4 p.m. The system was being accessed remotely, right now, in real time, and new corrupted code was flooding into the assembly line's neural network. Mary. He didn't care about protocol anymore. Someone's actively sabotaging the system. Currently. While we're watching. She materialized at his shoulder, her face illuminated by the cascade of malicious code. Trace the access point. Now. Walter's fingers flew across the interface, following the digital breadcrumbs through Barnes Tech's network. The access wasn't coming from outside, it was internal. Someone in this building, someone with legitimate credentials, was using Mary's 5-year-old backdoor to systematically destroy the demonstration. Got it, Walter breathed. Terminal 7, Section C. That's the executive wing, Mary finished, her voice deadly quiet. Robert's office. But when they pulled up the security footage, Robert Tillman's office was empty. His computer was active, code running, but the man himself was gone. He's covering his tracks, Mary said. Setting up the final crash sequence and disappearing before. Walter's blood ran cold. Before the presentation. Mary, if he's already initiated the corruption, it doesn't matter if we identify him. The system will fail anyway. She checked her watch. 6 hours. We have 6 hours to find him, get his encryption key, and reverse whatever he's planted. Or? Walter asked, though he already knew the answer. Or the entire assembly line crashes during the live demonstration, the investors walk, the funding dies, and the board votes me out. Mary's jaw tightened. Which is exactly what he wants. Walter pulled up the building's security system. Then we hunt. He's still here somewhere, he'll want to watch it burn. The question is, Mary said quietly, who else is helping him? David didn't work alone last time. Paranoia settled over them like fog. Anyone could be the enemy. Anyone could be watching. The clock showed 5 hours and 47 minutes. The presentation hall gleamed with chrome and ambition. 50 investors in tailored suits filled the auditorium, their collective net worth exceeding small nations. Mary stood at the podium, her voice steady, her armor perfectly in place. Walter watched from the control booth, his hands hovering over the emergency protocols. And now, Mary announced, our flagship AI assembly system, live demonstration. The robotic arms hummed to life. 4:30 beautiful seconds, they moved in perfect synchronized harmony. Then the cascade began. One arm froze mid-motion. Another spun wildly. Error messages flooded Walter's screen faster than he could read them. The investors' murmurs turned to concerned whispers. Mary's face remained composed, but Walter saw her knuckles whiten on the podium. Then he saw it, a signal ping, coming from inside the auditorium. Someone in this room was actively triggering the failure, watching Mary's empire crumble in real time. Walter's finger hovered over the nuclear option, crashed the entire system to force a trace. It would expose everything, Mary's backdoor, the sabotage, the 5 years of lies. It would humiliate her in front of everyone she'd spent a decade trying to impress. But it was the only way to catch the saboteur. He pressed it. The lights died. The holographic displays went black. The assembly line ground to a catastrophic halt. And in the emergency lighting, Walter's trace program lit up like a beacon, pointing directly to Robert Tillman in the third row, laptop open, a smile dying on his face. Security, Mary's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Detain Mr. Tillman. Now. Then she turned to the investors, and Walter watched something remarkable happen. The Ice Queen's armor cracked, and for the first time in a decade, Mary Barnes told the truth. 5 years ago, I made a catastrophic mistake. And today, that mistake almost cost us everything. But it also revealed a saboteur in our midst, and showed me that integrity matters more than perfection. She looked directly at Walter. Even when it costs us everything. The system came back online at 11 p.m., purged of 5 years of poison. Robert Tillman sat in a police station, his connection to David Chen's takeover scheme unraveling with every interrogation question. The investors, shocked but impressed by Mary's brutal honesty, had actually increased their funding offer. Barnes Tech had survived. But nothing would ever be the same. Mary stood before the assembled factory workers the next morning, her perfect armor finally, irrevocably shattered. I owe you all an apology, she said, her voice rough with exhaustion. I created a culture of fear. I drove away talent. I destroyed careers because I was too afraid to trust anyone with the truth. Her eyes found Walter in the crowd. It took a rookie with nothing to lose to show me what leadership actually means. The promotion came with a title Walter had never imagined, Chief Innovation Officer. The salary came with health benefits that covered his mother's treatment completely. But it was Mary's next announcement that left him speechless. I'm contacting all 50 people I forced out. Starting with employee number 1. She looked directly at the crowd. And I'm making it right. Every single one. That night, Walter found her alone in her office, the city lights of Detroit spreading below like fallen stars. For the first time since he'd met her, Mary Barnes was crying, silent tears that carved tracks through the perfect facade she'd maintained for so long. Did we win? She asked without looking up. We survived, Walter said. That's not the same thing. Mary nodded, pulling out her phone with shaking hands. She dialed a number she'd apparently memorized, her finger hovering over the call button. Employee number 1, she whispered. Dr. Sarah Chen. I destroyed her career in 2017. Walter watched as she pressed call, listened as it rang, heard her voice break as she said the words that would begin her redemption. Sarah? This is Mary Barnes. I know you have no reason to listen, but I'm sorry, and I want to make it right. The line stayed silent. Then, finally, I'm listening. If this story resonated with you, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below telling me, have you ever worked for someone who ruled by fear? Or have you been that person, the one who built walls so high you forgot how to let people in? More importantly, what would you do in Walter's position? Would you have exposed the truth and risked everything, or played it safe and kept your head down? Hit that subscribe button if you want more stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things in the face of impossible odds. Stories about courage, redemption, and the messy, complicated reality of second chances. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe someone stuck in a toxic workplace, or someone who's struggling with the weight of leadership and doesn't know how to ask for help. And remember, integrity isn't about being perfect. It's about being brave enough to admit when you're not. Drop a heart in the comments if you're ready to see more stories like this. Tell me where you're watching from, and what story you want me to tell next. Because courage isn't reserved for the qualified. Sometimes it belongs to the rookie who refuses to be afraid. See you in the next one.